Getting ready to go. What? Getting ready to go. I said, getting ready to go. What in the world are they talking about? Well, greetings, friends. I wanted to do a video follow-up, I suppose, to the mirror that I did yesterday, which was made by Freedom of Speech. I'll link his channel in the low bar, obviously, and I'm going to link yesterday's video as well, just in case you didn't see it. It discusses male and female circumcision and the issue of sexism as pertaining to, people's attitudes and how they differ regarding male circumcision and female circumcision. Because there's a very common belief out there that female circumcision is wholesale worse than male circumcision. That there's no way that you can draw any kind of equivalence between the two, and that therefore there's no sexism implied. In fact, I have had some of my viewers in the comments suggest to me that sexism can't really be applied towards men at all, and I'll discuss that in a minute. I'm going to link another video from Freedom of Speech in the low bar, which I strongly recommend that people watch. If you're on the fence about this issue, or if you want to find out more information about, how you can't really compare wholesale male circumcision against female circumcision, and so forth. But the thing is, the comparison in a moral sense is perfectly easy to make, in my opinion, and that's this. You're basically talking about arbitrarily altering someone's genitals without their consent in many cases, and without their knowledge or consent, I should say, in many cases, for the specific purpose of decreasing their sexual sensitivity. That's what circumcision is. And it's the same principle for males and for females. And in that sense, it's perfectly equal. It may be true that some forms of female circumcision are considerably worse than the most common forms of male circumcision. But there are other forms of male circumcision that are pretty damn bad as well. And is it really a matter of degree about which is worse? Because I would have thought that those arguing against female circumcision are against female circumcision outright, all forms of female circumcision. And assuming that that's the case, therefore it must be sexist to assume that, just because it's not as bad for men, that it's okay for men. So even if you say that you disagree with it because it's unnecessary, it's still implied that you're saying it's okay for men if you're saying it's not as bad. How it doesn't make any sense to me. And I do think it's inherently sexist. It's inherently prejudiced to suggest that somehow it's okay to take away the sensitivity of a man's anatomy, but not a woman's. If that's not sexist, please explain to me how it's not. It's prejudice based on someone's sex, isn't it? I'd like to know if it's not. I'd like to know how not. Now, one of my feminist friends left me a comment which I'd like to read, because she basically says something that I take great umbrage with. Sexism doesn't really apply to men. Says you. All right. I just read the dictionary definition. It says especially women, but it doesn't limit it to women. To say that sexism only applies to women is to equate sexism and feminism. Sexism is a component within feminism, of course, obviously. But to say that they're equal in the same thing, or to even imply that, is, in my opinion, just completely wrong. It's incorrect. It's not in harmony with the dictionary definition, and it's not in harmony with what I understand in society as the sort of general understanding of what sexism is. Yes, sexism does pertain more to women than men, because it's my opinion that women get discriminated against more often and in more situations than men do. Having said that, to pretend that men never get discriminated against based on their sex in any situation is absurd. Men can discriminate against other men because they're men, and women can discriminate against men because they're men, and courts can discriminate against men because they're men. It happens, and to suggest it doesn't happen is, at the very best, dishonest. So, that's my opinion. I just couldn't let that one go. And I'm going to read the rest of the comment. I'm going to start over again, though. Sexism doesn't really apply to men. It's like saying that black people can be racist. I don't accept that comparison at all, but let's go with that for a second. It is like saying black people can be racist in the sense that you're right, black people can be racist, but you seem to be implying that they can't be. I know black people who will tell you that other black people are racist, plus I'm acquainted with black racists myself. Uh, it's absurd to say that people of an ethnic minority, of whatever ethnic minority, can't be racist just because they're a minority. Are you kidding me with that? And then you go on to say, it completely depoliticizes a term meant to explain the oppression of a marginalized group, women. Of course, we're talking about sexism. Okay, now, just because you decide to appropriate the term doesn't mean you are allowed to. I mean, you can say that it more often pertains to women than men, and I'll grant you that 1,000 times over. But to say that it only applies to women is sexist in itself. It's the height of hypocrisy. And to be blunt, it really torpedoes, for me personally, as a member of your audience, it really torpedoes your credibility to say that sexism doesn't really apply to men. Um, if that's really your position, that is, in my opinion, as sexist as the worst people that you're criticizing when you're making your feminist claims. I find it appalling and shocking that you'd make such a point blank statement like that. Without any qualifications. And I'm going to carry on to the final bit here. Calling it sexist is like trying to compare it to the oppression of women, which it isn't. Actually, it is exactly that. It is trying to compare it with women. In the case of circumcision, it is exactly that. It's making a comparison. Now, the implication of what you're saying, and if I'm getting this wrong, please tell me, okay? Calling it sexist is like trying to compare it to the oppression of women. Yes, it is. But it's not saying it's equal. Comparing two things is not the same thing as equating two things. I would grant you that they're not equal, but I will not grant you that they're not comparable, okay? And, I hope we don't fall out over this because I've been liking your videos for like a year now, and whatever, babe. I mean, honestly, do you really believe sexism doesn't apply to men in any situations? Where I come from, they say nigga please. I mean, that's just bizarre to me. Anyway, I gotta get off. This has Got That Funk. Thanks for watching, and may all your ups and downs be ups.